Good evening, keepers of the cash. Gary B, the casual comic guy here, and I am joined, as always, by the fattest stack of comics in the land, Rob's Fat Stacks. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. And how are you doing there, comic book friends and fiends?
Right. And Brian LCS is our focus tonight. So, Brian, great to have you on. Thank you for joining the show and coming on. Now, before we get going, Brian, would you like to give a quick plug about the awards and final
Sure.
voting?
Well, thanks for having me on. So Comic Book Community Awards, we are in
I
the
accept all the awards. Thank you, Brian. It's been a pleasure. Wait,
well, yeah, we've got two of the nominated channels sitting with us tonight. So we're in the home stretch. We have voting has completed, and December 3rd we are live stream and announcing the winners. So Saturday night, December 3rd, 9 p.m. Eastern. All of the winners for the 22 categories get revealed. So looking forward to it. Got some work I still need to do. I'm working on the trophies. Got some videos I got to get together for the live stream, but fun work. In prep for the show. So
Nice. Now,
oh,
before we get
bravo to
going,
you and all the work that went into it with
yes.
you and your team, because I know it's
thank you.
it's a task that can be pleasurable at times and not so at other times when depending upon who's yelling at you. And I apologize for all my yelling. No.
All right, Brian. So before we get going, as I like to do, give a brief synopsis of who you are and what your channel's about for anyone watching on a rewind that you are new to.
Sure. Brian LCS, the channel. I'm almost a year and 3/4. I think April will be my 2 year mark that I've been on YouTube. Um, I do a lot of things that are very similar to others. Comic book hauls, unboxings. I do a couple of reviews. My reviews are mainly Spider-Man titles because Spider-Man is the favorite title. My favorite character and favorite title that I read. So I do some Spider-Man reviews. Um, and we part of the channel is the Comic Book Community Awards. Giving updates throughout the year as the awards are in progress. But yeah, I've got back into collecting a few years ago and just at some point decided to jump into a YouTube channel. And I think the biggest thing is really just being connected to the community and other people that like to collect comics. I mean, that's been the biggest um, enjoyment of having the channel. So
Nice. All right, and let's say a quick hi to our chat, and then we'll get to your first book tonight. And
sure.
I'm sure we're all curious what books you have. So first in, as usual, beating everybody in. Last Crucis. Good evening, sir. Psychedelic Comics from Jersey. Go Devils on a great win streak right now. 9
Yes.
in a row. Trying to make it 10 tonight against the Habs. Third thumbs up from Tony. Thank you, Tony. Miss
Tony.
So, always a pleasure. Jared Jitterbug. Good evening, sir. Happy to see you, buddy. One Shot Comics. Nicholas over there. How you doing, Nicholas? And Travis. How are you, sir? All right, so we got them pouring in, and we got a lot of conversations going on.
Let's see.
Yeah. Oh, we got Chop and Drop made it in too. Evening Chop and Drop.
Chop.
All right, so Brian, how difficult was it for you to put your top 10 together? And with your 11th and 12th added to that, did you have any problems or was it pretty cut and clean for you?
And why do you now hate Gary?
Right.
No, I was thinking about it prior to actually going through the books, just what books did I want to bring. And I was having trouble coming up with 10. But then as I started going through the boxes and, looking for books, the books that I had maybe 4 or 5 picked out. As I started going through, I could use this, I can use this. And so it was fairly easy. The spec book and the story book, the 11th and 12th book were pretty clear right away. But yeah, not too difficult.
Nice. All right, well, let's start out with your number one.
Sure. Well, this is a book that I've shown a number of times. So, Amazing Spider-Man. This is issue 80. Um, and the big special thing about this is my birthday book. This was published in January 1970. So the month and year I was born, and so it's just one of those books. It's just um, to have a book as old as me, or come into the world the same time I did. It's just kind of a special book to it'll grow old with me, and it's it's just one of those fun books. When I looked it up to figure out what book it was, what issue, and I was hoping maybe it was like a big key book for Amazing Spider-Man, but it wasn't. But still,
It's
it's
still a
great.
great cover.
Yeah, great cover.
Makes it great. Makes it much easier to own when it's not a great big key, though.
Yes, very inexpensive to pick up. So this was one of the first slab books that I picked up because it was relatively inexpensive. I think I forget what I paid, maybe $65-$70 on eBay, if that. So
And I just learned that you're a couple months older than me because I am July 1970.
okay, yeah, I knew we were in that range.
Right? The upper echelon of getting old.
Yes.
Right. So great first book, birthday book. And I just call Conan #1 my birthday book because it's from 1970. It's the only book I care about from that. All right,
Well, obviously, and was a number of books published, every month, obviously, but
right.
Spider-Man being my favorite character, that was, that was the book I went with.
Now, have you read it?
I read it. I've flipped through it. I haven't read it because I do want to go back and reread digitally. I can on
Right.
Marvel Unlimited go back and really read Amazing Spider-Man from the start. At least some of those early stories, because I've heard those stories or know of those stories, but have never really read many of them. So I really want to go back and kind of get a lot of the origins of his Spider-Man. I mean, I obviously know Spider-Man's origin, but some of the villains that I may not know the complete backstory on.
You should write Marvel. Say, look, guys, I know you may not be aware of it. I'm Brian LCS. I'm kind of a big deal. This is my birthday book. Where's the facsimile edition? You let me know when it's coming out. I'm sure it'll go over well with you.
Yes, I'm sure.
All right, #2, buddy.
Number two is Marvel Tales number 223. Really nice Todd McFarlane cover.
He had a great run of covers on Marvel Tales.
Yes. And
Dazzler's the best one.
And this was just one of the books that I had collected when I started collecting in the 80s and late 80s, early 90s. And this was a book that I've just had for years and really just loved the cover and ended up getting it slabbed. This was a book that I didn't have pressed or cleaned. It's been sitting in a long box for 30 years. And
Well, pretty good grade for that.
when I got back into collecting, I learned of comic book grading and of the companies, and so this was just a book that I was like, wow, it's just a great cover. And at the time, McFarlane was kind of a game changer for me collecting his artwork because it was something new and different than we've seen before. And so he was a big deal for me when I was collecting in the 80s. And so this was just one of those, Doc Ock is one of my favorite, villains. So this was just one of those books to.
And that cover, if I can speak on it a second, that one I always thought was a little bit special too, because when you look at that cover, the way Spider-Man is in that cover, he feels like he's taking up actual space, like he's almost lifted off the cover. Like the art on that particular cover is just so good.
Yeah, I mean, this was one of the books that I just kind of was flipping through my collection and saw it and stood out to me and said, that would be a great book to have slab to be able to display, at some point. So,
Yeah, and I don't know how many of the Marvel Ages he did, but they were all really good. The Angel one's really good. The Beast one, right?
Yeah, I mean they're very distinctive. You know, you see there's no mistaking that it's McFarlane's artwork.
And I thought it was funny too because they must have had him cheap then that they would pay him to do the cover of their reprint book,
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, he probably wasn't making what he's making today.
right? All right, number 3, sir. Good
So
first two.
this is going to be number 3 and well 4 because there's 2 copies of it. So this is Web of Spider-Man number 1,
Great cover too.
newsstand. So this is one of them, and I have a second copy. Um, this is a 9.4. Now again, these are both books that I purchased most likely at a local 7-Eleven. You know, bought off the rack, and
Was it chili cheese dog?
they've been they've been probably a Slurpee or a Big Gulp, you know, as well, or maybe some candy or something. But um, you know, these were books that, you know, like I said, I purchased, read, and have been with me, you know, since the '80s. And these were two of so when I got back into collecting, grading was all new to me, so I was still learning it. And these books were sent in before I really understood about cleaning and pressing. And so these books were not cleaned or pressed. They were sitting in, like I said, a long box for, you know, 30 years. I had them moved around. I actually sold my entire collection to a friend at one point because I needed some money, and he never did anything with them. And then eventually I bought them back from him. So these books have been just around in
They
different
were rented out
locations.
for a while and then came back, huh?
Yeah, it was basically like you know, a loan. You know, he gave me the money for the books. He kept the books, and then, you know, years later, I bought the books back for the same price. He didn't upcharge me any. So
And I think that's one of the underrated Spider-Man covers out there. That web number.
yeah, you know, this is a cover that I think stands out for, you know, a lot of people. You know, they know this cover, and you know, like I said, I'm just amazed that these got. You know, I obviously knew when I initially started collecting about, you know, the books could be valuable, that you should store them properly, bag and board. But, you know, these were probably bagged and boarded in the '80s, and I don't think I ever swapped out the bag. So, you know, like I said, these sat in a long box probably for 30 years and then were sent off to CGC for, you know, for grading. So I'm happy with the results. You know, that these were books that, like I said, that I purchased, you know, at a convenience store and have had, you know, for all those years. So
Right. So, well, you took care of them then. That was nice.
yes,
Well, I mean,
yeah.
you were old enough
Luckily,
then
I,
'cause
you know,
you were
I
in your
stored
20s.
them properly.
Right. All right, number 4, sir.
Number 4. So we're gonna switch up a little bit. So and I pulled this. So this is Moon Knight 1 of the
Right.
current Moon Knight series. And the reason why I pulled this book is because this has been one of the most. This series has been very enjoyable to read. I didn't really know much about Moon Knight. Um, you know, I had read Team Up, and so Marvel Team Up was probably my knowledge base for other characters because I was when I collected in the '80s, I was pretty much collecting just Spider-Man titles. But at that time, there were, you know, Amazing, Spectacular, Web, and then Spider-Man, the McFarlane series. So I had Team Up. So I had my hands full with just Spider-Man titles, and I didn't read a lot of other characters. So this was just one of those books that I started collecting, and I've really enjoyed because I've gotten to know Moon Knight. You know, the Moon Knight character. The artwork has been amazing, and the story has been, you know, very good.
Let's say
So
the
this
McNiven
has been
Moonlight.
kind of a nice balance to not, you know, it's something different than Spider-Man. So that's one of the main reasons why
There's
I
nothing
picked this
different
book.
than
A
Spider
dark
Man.
return down the road.
So
So why deviate from Spider Man? There's no point really. I mean, come on.
And
it's
McNiven is just a fantastic. Like, you know, everyone has that one character that they're defined by, and I think Moon Knight's always defined McNiven's style the best.
yeah. I mean, the what's been great about that series that the covers have been, most of the covers, I think, other than the current issue, the A covers have been outstanding, and there's been some amazing variant covers. The artwork in the interiors is fantastic. So it's just been a very good, overall, everything's kind of clicking for that title, at least for me.
Nice. Well, and I'm a big fan of Jed McKay. Like, I think people underestimate how good he is at nailing the characters he writes.
Yeah, no, the story has been really, done really well.
Still have people rolling in here.
Wow, we
Well,
got
all
a
right,
lot of
number
folks with
5,
us.
Brian.
So next one is kind of a change of pace type book for me. She-Hulk. And this is the current series. This is issue 1 of the current series. And again, this was a character that I've known, from afar. Read some stuff. I did collect Fantastic Four when John Byrne was on the Fantastic Four in the 80s, because I had some friends who were big John Byrne fans. So they kind of introduced me to his artwork, and I started collecting Fantastic Four. And so between Marvel Team Up, Fantastic Four, I had a little introduction to the She-Hulk. But now, this has been a really fun series. This is very light. It's been more like relationship building with her and Jack of Hearts, and not so much, crazy action, crazy, storyline. So it's been a good contrast book to read with some of the other things that I'm reading, which are, a little bit more maybe detailed or craziness going on in the story. So
The chat is picking right here.
They're going at it.
Jackson Roykirk, he corrected himself before he got put in timeout. Easy, Jackson. Matt Woods has a wrench too.
oh no, we're having a blue wrench fight. That's not good.
Right? Roykirk came in trying to pick on Conan, and we don't have that on this channel.
No, in his defense, the Matt Woods fired the first shot saying Star Trek sucks, and then came the Conan sucks rebuttal.
Good.
So
I see now that Matt Woods
I will allow it.
Right. Well, especially because I know Roykirk is a Conan fan as well.
Right.
And all right, so Moon Knight. All right, number 5, Brian.
5. All right, we've got. So this is oddly enough another John Byrne cover, and this
sorry, number
is
6. I misspoke.
okay. So, but this is another birthday book for my family. So my son and daughter this was published the month and year that my son and daughter were born. So
Nice.
This is volume 2. So Amazing Spider-Man issue number 3, volume 2. So this is the only copy I own. I do need to pick up another copy. I just haven't done that yet. It's on the list because of son and daughter. I have twins, so I want to have 2 books for them.
Right.
And this is probably a book that I'll eventually get graded just to preserve it. But that's one of the things I like. Since I've picked up my own birthday book, I plan to do that for my three kids and my wife as well. So
Rock Comics would just tell you to tear that book in half and give them each half the book.
Yeah.
That's an option, but that book's pretty much that's low cost where I can pick up a second copy.
Now, are you going to grade their copies too, so they have their own graded copies of their birthday books?
Yes, yeah. The plan is I did send in some books to be graded. Some of the books I have here were graded that I had submitted, but I haven't submitted any books probably in well over a year. I was kind of just waiting for things to calm down with the turnaround times. But yeah, I do have some books to submit.
My
last submission was January, and I'm still waiting for them. And that submission has an Italian Conan number 1 signed by Mahmoud Asrar, and it has 2 Conans that Rob gifted me signed by Bruce Jones still out. It's been almost a year, Rob. Still out in purgatory at CBCS.
Oh, CBCS, yes. CBCS is running still running out. If it was sent in a year ago, um, yeah, I'm just now getting stuff that's been 2021. The last of my 2021 submissions just shipped today, but
Oh wow.
basically, they were moving, so if it wasn't express, they just boxed it all and palletized it. I don't care what they say. That's the only thing that makes sense, because
Right.
there was zero movement. Then all of a sudden, everything moved shortly after they got to their new facility. Meanwhile, you can do your 20-day turnaround time at CGC on modern books right now.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a number of community videos that where books have coming back, modern books coming back within 6-8 weeks. Very very quick turnaround time. So
It's like I said, it's less than a month now without having to fast track it. Fast track doesn't even make sense because it's like all it does is go down to 10-day turnaround time, and you
yeah,
can't
but it
control
seems like
when
they still have that big backlog of books from 2 years ago that they're still working through.
Well, the anything that's older, not a modern book, and not below the $400 threshold, that stuff still takes time. Everything else, in other words, they got a bunch of new graders that are cutting their teeth on modern stuff, which is
Yeah.
why we're probably also seeing all kinds of weird grades, inconsistency, or people are claiming to see inconsistent grades coming out right now. But we'll see.
So before we get to the next one, Brian, let's talk about the birthday books for a second. So your birthday books is Spider-Man. Your kids' birthday books are Spider-Man. You mentioned getting one for your wife. Is Spider-Man the hero of the family, or are you buying them all Spider-Man books because that's your hero?
Yeah, I'm buying them because that's my hero. I mean, my son, my two sons, and my daughter both like Spider-Man, and they know obviously my love for the character. Um, and we we've seen all of the Spider-Man movies. We've watched them together, and so they're kind of Spider-Man fans by default because I'm such the big fan. But my daughter is more she has multiple characters that there's plenty of characters that she likes. She's actually probably the biggest comic book fan of the rest of the family. um but she has, like I said, so many different characters that she enjoys, so I just defaulted with Spider-Man.
If you can't push your love of something onto your kids, then what's the point of having them?
That's right.
All right. All right.
But it's
So
funny, my daughter,
go ahead.
she doesn't actively collect, but she'll read. She buys a lot of. She's an avid reader, so she picks up a lot of things in trades to read. But she recently called me and she had heard about the Spider-Verse series,
Mm-hmm.
and she said, "Hey, can you pick those up for me?" And so I can read them. So I have extra copies that I need to send to her so that she can read. So she's a closet Spider-Man fan.
So she's doing it right.
Yeah, she's still figuring out how to get dad to buy her the books.
Right. Yes, exactly.
So now you haven't answered the question though. You've watched all the movies. What actor is your favorite Peter Parker Spider-Man?
You know, probably I mean, obviously I like Tobey Maguire having the first, live action. But I really enjoyed Andrew Garfield. I really thought he may have been, the best of the three. I mean, they're all good in different ways. Um, the one thing I was thinking about with well, I'm drawing a blank on his name. The current actor, I can picture his face. I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Tom?
Tom Holland, yes. Um, is that if they try to do something, he's so young. He's so young looking in the role that some of the storylines, if they try to do, like if they were to try to introduce Miles at some point, Peter Parker is more like mid-20s or late 20s.
Right.
Miles would be a younger kid. Tom Holland almost seems like he would be a year or two
Stepbrother.
older than Miles. Miles would have to be about 8 years old based on the way Tom Holland looks. So I wonder how they may handle that if if Miles gets introduced and if we ever see Miles and Peter in the same film.
Now, see, I thought Tobey Maguire was a good Peter Parker. I thought he was a little, and he was a little not quippy enough as Spider Man. Although
Hmm.
I love the movies, especially two, right? Um, Andrew Garfield, I thought was a great Spider Man with the quips. Thought he was a little too debonair as Peter Parker and too cool for school. Not his fault, the writing, but he was a very hip Peter Parker. You didn't really
Yes.
see him as a nerd. Where I thought Tom Holland has the best balance between the two, but there's certain nuances to all of them I like in certain parts. Like, that one scene where Andrew Garfield's Spider Man and he's webbing up the guy and just having fun and wisecracking. Like,
Oh
that's like
yeah, the
right
car
out of the
thief. Yeah,
pages
yeah.
of the book. Just,
You can't put too much thought into this. It's just Spider-Man on screen. It's all I care about. I love them all. Give me
Mm.
Spider-Man and more of it.
Rob's favorite is Nicholas Hammond.
The cargo net roping.
Dude, I picked, but I watched that.
Oh yeah.
I would still watch it today, even though there's no pacing to that show at all. And you get maybe 3 minutes of Spider Man an episode,
Just get me
Yeah.
pictures of Spider-Man.
right? All right, number 7, Brian.
Well, speaking of some of the older, Spider-Man.
Oh, I
So
love the Spideys.
so this was just a random Spidey super stories because of the electric company, right? I mean, as a kid, I would just sit through the electric company to hopefully, catch,
Same
45 seconds of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And, as a kid, you had no idea, how many episodes there were. I don't even know how many episodes Spider-Man was in, how many electric company episodes there were, but I would sit through them regardless, just hoping that I'd get, whatever, the minute segment
I
of
have the
Spider-Man on it.
DVDs. I think there's only like 2 or 3 DVD discs, so it can't be that many.
Yeah. But, as a kid back then you had no, what was the reference? TV Guide, maybe to look up information on a
right?
You just watch.
on a show. So I mean, I can't, countless
At the
hours
library
just,
looking at microfiche.
yeah, countless hours, waiting for Spider-Man to show up on that
And
show.
didn't you always want him to talk? I'm like, why don't they let him talk?
Yeah.
But it was
Yeah.
great. And I mean, watching it as an adult, it's complete garbage, but it's still fun. And like whenever I see those, I grab them.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Now there was a bunch my LCS had of those, Brian, and on the very back cover, they're in mint shape, right? But on the back cover, somebody cut out a coupon that was on the corner. So the only
Oh.
thing that's missing is the back cover. So they were selling them for $1 each. I'm like,
Yeah, I'll take them.
I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm not
I
reading them. I
found
just want to read them and have fun with them.
I think I found this, in the dollar bin. So
Such an underrated little series. And but
yeah.
I digress. So Spidey, I'm a big fan of that. And like you, that was the only reason I watched Electric Company. I was always waiting for Spider-Man.
Yeah, I probably can't remember anything else that happened on the Electric Company other than the Spider-Man segment.
Pat.
True, Bobby.
Pat.
Right. All right, number 8.
You go back to watch young Morgan Freeman.
Oh, right, true. Forgot about that. So many of those old shows, like the one people always hit me with is what was the one? The one with Gary Gnu on it. No news is good.
Oh, the
news.
Great Space
Oh
Coaster.
yeah,
Yes.
Space Coaster. Yeah, yeah.
Because I've had all those jokes my whole life being Gary.
Right. No GNUs is good GNUs.
Right.
Gary GNU. That one, yeah. And then of course you go back and you watch a young from your time in school, a young Ben Affleck in his first role on Voyage of the Mimi, right? On the old PBS. Well, anyways, comics.
Yeah,
That's
well,
what we're about, not PBS specials.
when we introduced my kids to Indiana Jones, they had a hard time. They were, fairly young, and they had a hard time putting together that Han Solo was now Indiana Jones. So that was a little
Yeah, they don't understand the actor part of it yet.
right. Yes.
Great, go show them American Graffiti.
Right? What lies beneath? They'll like that one. Yes, kids, he did kill his wife.
Yes.
Number 8.
Number 8 is so another, Saturday morning, right?
I got
Spider-Man and his
that.
amazing friends, Saturday morning, a big bowl of cereal and, watch the cartoons. So,
Angelica
finally
Jones.
I finally picked up a copy of that myself the other day.
That was a good buy you got. That $100, Rob.
Is that what I
That book
paid for
was
it?
in it.
I don't know. I don't remember what I paid
yeah.
for it. You're not allowed to say
No,
those
you
things.
bought like a group of books for $100. I was gonna
Oh yeah, that's
bid
right.
on
It
them,
was
and
in
you
it. It was
said
in
a
a
big
oh,
lot.
this was included in it? Yeah. All
yeah,
right.
and I
That's
didn't
right.
because that book alone is $100 book, and
Yeah,
you
it
were
was that, and then there was also the Spider Gwen 25 Deodato variant and some other stuff. Yeah.
you're probably not Apocalypse Now either, right? All right, so Bobby De Legato has a question for you. He's been wanting to ask you about that Spider-Man picture over the lake.
The one that looks like a weird Winnie the Pooh, but it's actually Spider-Man over your right shoulder.
This one here?
Yes.
Or- so this is a
Animation cell.
I actually picked that up at a Comic-Con. So it was when I took my kids to a Comic-Con, or they took me. I think it was actually like Father's Day weekend, a local Comic-Con, but I wasn't collecting at the time, so I didn't look at any of the comic books. But there was somebody selling prints. They basically an artist, and he had a number of different prints, of different superhero characters. And so I saw that of Spider-Man hanging over the water there with his camera, and I just picked it up. So that's something I've had,
Taking a selfie.
yeah, with a
So
Polaroid.
that's the thing that's important for all these young millennials and Gen Z kids to know is that Peter Parker pretty much invented the selfie. Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
this is true.
The costume selfie, nonetheless. What's this? Now he wants to know about the one over your left shoulder that Seth does.
Well, so I had that big print in the back. So that was just a birthday gift my wife got for me to have something big Spider-Man in the background. And then there's this one way up on the wall behind me. So that was done in New York City. We were, in Manhattan, in Times Square, and a street artist basically. I think I had a Spider-Man T-shirt on at the time, and so we saw him doing artwork, and it was basically all with like spray paint.
Hmm.
And he said, "Oh, would you like me to do your picture?" And we said, "Sure." And like I said, I'm assuming because I had my Spider-Man shirt on, he basically had that Spider-Man's eye with the reflection of the New York City skyline in it.
Nice.
But he
Nice.
did it in like 10 minutes with spray paint, on the street.
That's
So
insane.
I had no idea what it was at first, as he says working on it and different spray paint, different colors. And then, at some point it started to come together and I realized, what it was. And I was like, we were amazed, how quickly he was able to put that together. And,
Right? Because the artist's
we
vision
took
can
it
be
home.
amazing. Like you're looking at something they're doing, you have no idea what it is, but they already know exactly where they're going, and it's immaculate when they're done.
Yeah. And he's using different like cardboard to cover the different, to get the colors in the right spots, the spray paint and all these different, techniques. And he's just kind of whipping it around. And, he's on like a milk crate with a piece of cardboard with this, the 11 by 17, paper. And he's just putting this all together, like I said, in 10 minutes. So it was pretty amazing.
Wow. All right. Number 8, sir.
Number 8. So this book, well, the last book I just showed, this was an AOK from Dope Comics,
Yes,
part of an AOK
sorry.
that he had sent me.
Nice.
So he also sent me this next book, and
All right. Number 9.
so this is Supernatural Thrillers number 6, featuring the Headless Horseman.
Oh, awesome cover too.
And so this was a book that my wife and I saw. We went up to Sleepy Hollow a few years ago for Halloween. So we went up to Sleepy Hollow on Halloween, and we did all the tourist stuff. We we visited and saw all the, we went through the graveyard and the whole thing. But as we were going through, I'm drawing a blank on the writer of Sleepy Hollow, Headless Horseman. What did you say, Rob?
No, I started to say something wrong, so I stopped myself.
But anyway, we were visiting his house, and they had all of the different merchandise. So, this is a house from, the 1800s, and it's like an historical spot. But they had a bunch of the different licensing that they've done over the years, and so they had there was a Fox TV show, Sleepy Hollow. They had the Johnny Depp movie, and they happened to have this comic there. And my wife was like, "Well, do you have that?" And I said, "No, I didn't. It wasn't kind of on my radar." And so I had mentioned it, I think, in one of my videos that I wanted to pick up a copy of it, and Dope Comics, AOK'd this to me. So amazing, an amazing AOK. And so it's just so great to have having the connection, living in New York, visiting Sleepy Hollow, and the history behind it, and then getting the book AOK'd was was really special.
And a
Washington,
classic. Oh, go ahead.
Washington Irving's.
That's it, Washington Irving. I was saying I thought Irving, but I'm like, that wasn't his first name.
And a classic art duo on the cover from that time. Gil Kane on the pencils, and then you got one of the best inkers that was ever in the business with Ernie Chan. And you could really see Ernie Chan's inks in the horse, which is
how many Conan issues did Ernie Chan do?
What's that?
Yeah, if you watch Gary's channel, Ernie Chan.
How many Conan books did Ernie Chan do? Because you just called him the greatest inker of all time, so I figure it has to be a lot.
Oh, it was. I loved his inks. I even loved when he just drew the Hill issues. That's part. Ernie Chan is one of the guys that got me into comics as well. Just his art, I love it. It's like the John Romita Sr. with you guys, right?
Well, yes. Let's just not confuse him with his son.
Oh, no doubt there. Number 10, Brian.
So I think I miscounted because I had the 2 copies of Web of Spider-Man. So I think I considered that 10 books. So,
or maybe Gary miscounted.
I think I'm short a book because I had 2 copies of the same book.
Well, that's okay. Well, then we will just go to your 11th with a story and just call you a cheater.
Making a shortcut. So for my 11th, I don't really have a book because it's really tied, and we talked a little bit about the movies, Tobey Maguire. So I don't have the movie adaptation book. But what I do have is this is a basically a ticket from the premiere of Spider-Man, the first Tobey Maguire movie. So this is something I keep, I actually just have it on my dresser. So, when I'm getting ready in the morning or getting ready for bed, it's kind of always, present there. But the reason why I had this was my dad. So when this movie came out, I was in my, early 30s. But my mom and dad were retired. They lived in Florida. I lived in New York. And my mom and dad had always supported my love of, comic book characters. My dad took me to Playworld. Playworld was a local East Coast toy shop, similar to Toys R Us. It was like a competitor to Toys R Us. My dad took me to see Spider-Man there one afternoon. They had like an in-store appearance. I got to see Spider-Man there. My mom took me to J.C. Penney's to have breakfast with Spider-Man one Saturday morning. So my parents were always very supportive of, my love of character of superheroes. My dad bought me my first web shooter, I think, when I was like 5. The old, the little rubber dart web shooter that they sold. But when this movie came out, so when the first Tobey Maguire movie came out, my dad and I made a plan. So he flew up from Florida to come visit, and we got to see. I don't think we saw it like opening night. I think we saw it the next night or Saturday. Um, but he came up and we saw the first real live action Spider-Man movie together. And so
Wow.
here I am, a grown man with a family, and acting like a little kid, with my dad at the movies, and we just had it was one of those great times, one of those great memories that I have of my dad, who's since passed away. But love of movies and supporting of my love of these characters throughout the years was just one of those special memories. And so, that's what kind of ties the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies to me, ingrained in my memory, seeing
Right.
it. So,
And that's how I kind of am with my kid, because I started taking him to the Tom Holland ones. Although my kid loves the Tobey Maguire ones because he's got to watch them all. And yeah, I remember seeing that first Spider-Man. I went to the movies to see it 4 times. Once in
oh
the
wow,
IMAX, so I got to see it on the big screen. Because back in the day, I mean, I'm sure you and your dad were the same, right? You just couldn't believe there was really a Spider-Man movie.
oh yeah, compared to the things we've seen before, right? The 70s TV show, and and even some of the animated cartoons just couldn't compare to the special effects of the that original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man.
Right, and back then it only seemed like DC got movies.
Right. Yeah, that was one of right. That was probably one of the. I mean, this is obviously before the whole MCU and the phases and Iron Man and
Right.
all of these things, and it was the first really well done Spider-Man live action that we've seen. So
And I think if that movie would have bombed, we wouldn't even have the stuff we had today. Like that movie had to hit so well just for us that as
yeah,
much as
I
we
mean,
pick
it
on
had a
Sony
big.
now, they did it right with that first Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, and I mean, it made I remember following along, tracking the box office with it, and it was just, and even the sequels, and really Spider-Man 3, Tobey Maguire, that really wasn't, story wise, it wasn't that great. Still had a huge box office numbers.
Right. I thought the Sandman story in that movie was really good. And I thought 2 was the like most people, 2 was the best out of it. Although 1 always has a special place because it was the first one. And I just remember like when he's swinging, and especially when he lets Mary Jane down, that the web has like that tensile to it.
Oh yeah,
It
yeah.
just seems so real. And just all
Well,
the
yeah, the whole Doc Ock portrayal was just, that was like dead on.
oh, fantastic! Great story, Brian. That's a great share.
Yeah, no, like I said, one of the big memories that I have with with my dad, tied to my love of Spider-Man. So
Doesn't get any better, buddy.
no,
Indoctrination. Let's begin indoctrination. Sorry.
We're on a mission. No, you're gonna have that song stuck in my head all night. I
To make
love
the
that
kids
movie.
watch your way.
Have you ever seen? Do you know what movie he's talking about, Brian? History of the
uh,
World Part 1 by Mel Brooks.
oh
Yeah.
yes,
Taking the
One of
Inquisition
the
song and
best.
changing it to indoctrination.
Right.
yes, yeah. No, I was watching a clip earlier of so Monty Python 2 was, there was a clip somebody took of Life of Brian. Was it
Ah,
Life of Brian? I think it was Life of Brian, and they made like a NFL meme out of it. But those were some classic movies that I used to watch, with
Life of
friends.
Brian is one of the best.
Yes, let's all go to the stoning.
He's a very
It
naughty
was the
boy.
Bring Out Your Dead clip. Was that Life of Brian, or was that
The what? Which clip?
Bring Out Your Dead?
Oh no, that's
That's
Monty
Holy
Python and the
Grail.
Quest for the Holy Grail.
Holy Grail. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
the half funny movie.
Yes, just a flesh wound.
I fought in your general direction.
I mean, half of the movie is funny, but it's very funny. The other half is, kind of a letdown. But Life of Brian is solid throughout. Anyways,
Yes, they were. The villain actors were great in the movies, except for Topher Grace as Topher Grace was not good in Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, I think they tried to do too much in that last film, right? They tried to.
But he's not Eddie Brock. He's too thin, too skinny. Eddie Brock's a bodybuilder. No one will depict him like that in any of the movies.
Yeah,
But I
much
digress.
much
there was
bigger.
all they needed to do was forget about all the Venom stuff. They could have just gone through the stuff with the black costume and gone with the reveal that it's alive and have it like slithering down the church or something in the movie there. And then
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
Give him a
then
whole
then everybody
movie.
knows what's happening in number 4, and it's
Right.
like, I need it.
Yeah, they tried to do too much, right? Because then they
Well,
had.
and that was
Um,
Sony meddling with Raimi on that one
Well,
because he didn't
it's
want
a
to introduce Raimi.
cascading failure of many superhero films, is that each time they try to up the ante by adding another thing, and it just complicates the mess, and it gets to be we're trying to introduce too many things at once. That's just my opinion. All right, spec
I
time.
agree. All right. Now, what is your spec, Brian?
so Rob will probably appreciate this because I know we've been kind of trying to fill these runs together. So
Nice.
this is this is the first ongoing series from Miles Morales. So all new Spider-Man #1. Now, so this is still Polybag. Now, this is a book that I recently picked up with a trade from David from Main Event Comics. So
Nice.
I sent him a couple books that he was looking for his PC, and he sent me this and one other Spider-Man book. But I think because Miles is been around for what, about 12 years now. We haven't seen him live action. We've seen the animated, Into the Spider-Verse. I like this, obviously Ultimate Fallout 4, the first appearance, but that's a more expensive book. And
Right.
this book is really starting to creep up, but I think as his first ongoing series, this could be a bigger book in the future. So
Mm,
it's one of the reasons why I tried to scoop it up as soon as I could, because I know these books are starting to, increase in price. And obviously if we get a live action Miles at some point, then we'll probably,
Yeah,
or
it's inevitable.
rumor of, we'll get a big bump in these books. So
yeah, if we saw what happened when you just saw him announced into the PlayStation, right? That's when UF4 all of a sudden really kind of started taking it up like crazy. And then yeah, when it goes in, if it comes to live action, it's gonna be huge. But it's just to the point now where he's not going away. He's got
right,
a huge following now, and so he is an example of creating another character, and he does exist in his own, and is going to continue to be big. And so that's why it's like I finally said, yeah, just like you. I was like, you know what? I know Peter's my guy, and Miguel's my number 2, but I gotta grab some of these now while you can, because eventually, if we wait another 5-10 years, it's gonna start getting more and more difficult. Even though the print runs are there, it's still the keys are pretty expensive, starting to get up there on some of
yeah, they're
these.
starting to creep up already. And
Right.
Yeah,
and somebody made the point to me about the Miles, video game, is that you have a bunch of younger kids who are growing up on him and will know him from the video game and things like that. And so when they're older and have expendable, cash, they could
when
be
they're
looking to
us,
pick up
Right.
those books, in 10, 15 years. So, I think there's a pretty high limit for, some of the potentially for these books. And then one other thing that I found out about this book when I made the trade,
Mhm.
22 comics pointed out to me that um, there were 100 of these that were signed by Stan Lee.
Ooh.
And the only way to reveal that is to open the poly bag and check it. So he had, and I went back and when he mentioned that to me, I went back and did a little research on it. And so there was 2 different versions of it. There was just a Stan Lee signature, and then where Stan Lee wrote the quote with, great power comes great responsibility. And if you had that quote on the cover, you could send it into CGC and get it graded for free.
Wow.
Wow.
So that was, I had no idea. I knew nothing about that. And so until he mentioned it to me. And so who knows,
I never heard of
maybe
it.
Maybe I've got the golden ticket here. Maybe I've got a signed, Stan Lee
Now, do you
copy
ever
here. I don't
open it
know,
or
but
not?
I do plan on taking it out because I would like to get it, graded at some point.
You got to do it on
Um,
camera, Brian. You got to make
yes.
sure.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's what 22 Comics reached out and said, "Hey, did you know this?" And I said, "No, I had no idea." And he said, "Well, if you are going to take it out of the poly bag, you need to do that on camera as a reveal." And so I was like, "Wow, like I said, all news to me." So, hopefully, I'm holding one of the 100. I tried to figure out if I tried to Google search and see if I could find how
How
many of
many
the
had been
books had
revealed?
been uncovered, but there really wasn't much information about
Yeah, that was a book that I remember I was looking at try getting polybags. I'm still going to look for a polybag one at some point, but when I got my copy, it was just I found a great deal on a slabbed one. It was just I couldn't walk away from.
it. Right, right.
And
Yeah,
even
and
the
I've seen
Spider-Man
some other polybag copies, on eBay and my comic shop. I've seen them, for sale. So that's they're out there.
If I was to get one, I have to see it in person because I got to see the best you can the condition of the bag and everything else to try to understand what kind of condition the book might be in inside because there's just it's hard enough to see condition on books sometimes on from pictures
Oh yeah,
online,
sure,
let
sure.
alone when it's inside of a poly bag. You might just forget it. It's impossible.
Yeah, and this I wasn't so concerned about this because this was coming from another community member. It was a
Right.
trade. I didn't. I certainly wasn't what I traded, and which David was happy with, wasn't what I would have paid for the polybag book or a book, out of
Right.
pocket if I was buying it on eBay. So, even if this book is in rough condition, which I don't think it is, it looks like it's in at least, it's been stored properly and things like that. I'm happy with having it, right now.
Yeah.
So,
Now, have you looked into any pricing on that? Like if it's open or not open with the slabbed with the signature, like for different how it values up compared to each other in the
So
different.
it does seem like the poly bag is going. If the book is still in the poly bag, it seems like it's going for. It's kind of all over the place. People are asking for crazy amount of money because I guess it's it's the unknown of what potentially could be in the poly bag.
Right, the
Um,
Willy Wonka factor, right? You're looking for that.
yes, right, right. And like I said, until I really knew that that there were signed books, I didn't understand why I was seeing very varied prices on the polybag book. It could be $200 or it could be $500. But where you can buy a slab graded copy already, those prices were pretty consistent. Um, for any of the listings that I saw. So.
Nice. Now, before we end, and you and your dad, you had that story. Now, was your dad the person that introduced you to Spider-Man as a kid, or did you find Spider-Man on your own?
I don't really remember how I got introduced to Spider-Man. Um, I remember watching the '66 Batman series in reruns, and at some point I got introduced to Spider-Man, and then when I did, he became. I really enjoyed Batman as a kid as well, but Spider-Man because growing up in Long Island and a couple counties over from Queens County, where Spider-Man lived, and being had gone into New York City, Manhattan before. As a kid, I connected with Spider-Man because I thought I could go to Queens and maybe find him, or maybe see him swinging around, Manhattan, at some point. So, um, that was the connection with me, just being local to the area.
Right.
But then also, I think many of us have that experience of being the, you know, the geeky kid, or maybe not the popular kid in school. As you're going through middle school and high school and things like that. So definitely a relatable character as well. From that aspect. But the the geography of it was one of the initial hooks for me. Um,
Well,
for
and I
Spider-Man.
think that was true with a lot of the Marvel, right? Because all Marvels took place in like a real world setting, like in New York, in different states, or if it's overseas, in London. About you had a couple made up things like the Savage Land,
Right, right.
Krakoa, but for the most part, they took place in real world locations, which helped ground the characters.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because Gotham City, right, was
Yeah.
or Metropolis was like, all right, well, that's not a real place. I mean, Gotham seems like it could be a version of New York City, but it wasn't called New York City, or Batman didn't live in Westchester, so
I always thought of Gotham as Chicago with all the smog.
okay, yeah, that's probably a better guess, yeah.
And as we learned from Pocan Joe, you need all that smog in the air to see the bat signal.
Oh, that's true.
I
That's
never
true.
put any thought into that at all before watching Joe's video,
That's a good point.
right? But no, that was a great spec book, and even that Spider-Man, which had him and Peter Parker in it. There's even some spec in that because that's the first appearance of his clone. I think
Oh, of which one? This one?
I think it's called Spider-Man.
Oh, Spider-Man. Yes, yes, yeah, yeah.
Yes, yeah, and I think if
I
you,
had that series too. Right? Yeah.
yep,
Yep.
yeah, I got the nice Michael Turner cover. I got to send that in to get graded at some point still.
My biggest challenge now is, too, is I read most of the Spider-Man storylines in the '80s, but I haven't read them in 30 years. So I'm going off memory of some of those stories. So I'm trying to go back and reread as much of those stories. Like I remember, I really loved Craven's the Last Hunt, but I haven't read that story in 30 years, and so I know
Right,
of the story. I knew I liked it 30 years ago, but I need to go back and reread it. But then I'm balancing, collecting new stories, the new
Right.
Spider-Man books, and reading new stories. So um, I really need to kind of carve out some time to go back and reread some of those things that you know,
I got a long stack of recent pickups that I can't. That I've said, oh, I'll get to reading it eventually. Let alone going back and rereading old
like
stuff.
I think I have 3 long boxes of current reads. And before I got on, I was catching up reading my Rise of Dracula series, which is pretty fun. But
well, I just finished before we got on. I finished Spider-Man Blue. So the trade paperback with the story is the kind of love letter to Gwen Stacy.
Hmm.
Are they still fighting in the chat?
oh, dude, Matt
They're having
Woods'
fun.
vaccine will have you rolling.
See, that's the one advantage of being a guest. I don't necessarily have to pay so close attention to the chat,
Right? Yeah,
but
when you're a host, you have to. That's why I'm like, I'm cracking, I'm laughing over Brian speaking. Yeah, I mean Marvel, real places. And hey, that's why I always like Conan because Hyboria is real. Damn it! Right now, and to Rob's point and yours, Brian, I keep going back and rereading my Bronze Age books more than I'm reading the moderns. Not that there's anything wrong with my moderns. I just love those Bronze Age stories so much. I can't read them enough. Even if I've already read them 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 times, I keep going back to them again and again. There's just some magic there for me, and I just think it has to do with our age.
yeah, no, I definitely am trying to carve out some time to go back and reread some of those, some of my favorite, Spider-Man stories. Like I said, that I haven't read in so many years to kind of just brush up on some of the history of the character. So
You got to look some of the old graphic novels up that aren't in print anymore, like Spider-Man: Spirits of the Earth, which is a really cool, moody read. Spider-Man and MJ go to Ireland and hides himself
Wow.
too. But it's there's I have some here that I read all the time that are Spider-Man, and there's a couple in all Charles Vess art.
Okay.
So beautiful book, and there's a great Doctor Strange one with him, and But there's some obscure Spider-Man graphic novels out there. If you haven't gone down that rabbit hole yet, and I'll apologize to your wallet later.
I have not, but you've piqued my interest now.
Yeah, I'll have to send you some pics. Especially the Spirits of the Earth is just a very fun, unique read. But well, okay. Great episode. We'll start rounding it up. We're at the hour mark. So Rob, if we can get Rob to stop giggling like a schoolgirl. For a
Well,
second.
you
What's
said you
coming-
were going to send them pics, and I'm like,
oh, what's coming up for you, buddy?
I don't know what you guys are doing over there, but hey,
Right?
Hey, Gary's going to slide into my DMs. There's nothing wrong with that.
should send you some pics.
I heard his DMs are always open.
Got a double Polaroid to show you. What? Oh goodness gracious! Oh, I don't know. Same old stuff. I got videos coming Thursday. I'll have an unboxing video. I thought I knew what my schedule was, but stuff's been recorded for a while, so I really don't know. I assume it's a CBCS unboxing.
And I hear sometimes you open things on Monday.
I do a Monday mail call. I thought this week's Monday was going to be something, and it turned out to be something completely different. I've been promoting it incorrectly the whole time, but it doesn't matter. The Saturday will be only slaps. So even whether I have power or not, we can continue on. Apparently, we've learned, and we're going to have Mighty Collectibles. Mighty Collectibles and Comics. Comics and Collectibles. Yes. Mighty Comics and Collectibles. That's who it is. Sorry.
That is okay. And on my channel, I think we have this guy up again in 2 days. So join us on Thursday for In the Hot Seat, Brian's second return to In the Hot Seat, where he will be our guest again. Next week, we will be taking a break from live shows for the Thanksgiving week. And then we will come back after, and I'm going to be lining up some new guests. So we'll start it out that. But I think we all deserve Thanksgiving week off to relax and get settled and get through our peak seasons at our jobs. Right, Rob? Because I've been stressing at work. Like, man, am I going to make it home? I've been at work since 5. Am I going to make it home for my live show tonight? Ooh, did I overschedule myself? Brian, what's coming up for you, sir?
Every Saturday I do a morning show, Breakfast with Brian, 10 a.m. Eastern. It's kind of become a standard. We just did episode 50, so Saturday mornings, come hang out. We do a little comic book chat, some shout outs, and a giveaway. And then next Monday, I actually have my 800 subscriber giveaway. So similar to what Chris the Comic Vet did, and piggybacking off the Grow Together initiative, I had highlighted 6 channels and set some subscription goals for them. And the community came through. We hit all of those goals for those 6 channels. So that triggered the 800 sub giveaway. So we've got some slabs and some raw books that we're going to be giving away on Monday.
Nice.
Monday, I think I'm scheduled for Monday at 9. Try not to schedule up against some of the other stuff going on.
That's
that night.
9 Eastern real time, right?
9 Eastern real time, yes.
Okay.
So,
and Shop's been saving his singles for your LCS dancers.
yeah, they have grown. They're like the Grow Together #Grow Together. The LCS dancers are becoming a thing of their own now. They're like,
have you had to pay copyright for those or rights?
No, it's been
you just went to the club and filmed them yourself. Huh?
Yes, yeah.
Nice.
So, and then Freaky Louie does the song,
right?
And it's now
I
the
wasn't
dancers
sure if they were in the public domain or not.
At this point, I could just pretty much play the dancers for 45 minutes on a Saturday morning, and I don't really even need to show up. So
you hit 1,000 subs in no time, right?
Well, after they fulfilled their contract to Brian, he released their children back into their custody. So it was
wow!
Ouch!
Ransom's a hell of a thing.
Wait till they say keep them.
Right? All right.
No, I'm good. The three kids I have eat enough of my food. I'm good.
Right. I have one and I'm like, I spend triple on you for food what I spend on me.
Well,
Like,
mine are old enough now. Well, my daughter doesn't live home, but my two sons do. But they're old enough now, and they work and drive. So they're like, "Hey, do you need anything home? I'm stopping at the store on the way home. Do you need anything?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, here to get this, get this, get this."
Your kids are thoughtful.
I need a ribeye.
How thick of a hose did you have to beat them with to get them to?
Well, what I do is I just stop buying the food at home, and so they have to go and buy it themselves. And then, yeah, occasionally they ask, "Do you need anything?" So then
Oh
that's when I
no.
hit them with the big list.
Yeah, just say you used to do this to me every time I went to the store, kids. I couldn't take you anywhere without buying you something. Because I'm a sucker for that. I can't take my kid anywhere. He's gonna leave with something. I'm that dad.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I was this. Yeah, I'm that same way.
I'm just glad I shipped mine out of state, but they still ask for stuff.
Oh yeah.
Rob got it backwards. Oh yeah, they never stop being expensive, right, Rob?
Oh, there will be at some point. There's a end date on my support.
Light at the end of the tunnel.
That's right.
Yeah, but you're in the rough spot right now with two in college. I was that way.
Yes.
We had three in college at one point. So yeah,
Two in college. Well, all the investments went the wrong way.
Oh, all right,
Yep.
and with that, guys, we will close out the show. I want to thank my co-host Rob, as always a great addition to any show. I want to thank Brian for coming on. Thank you, sir. I want
Thank
to
you.
thank the chat who was hopping tonight and kept cracking me up while I was trying to interview Brian. um, you guys were on point tonight. Great chat. Thank you for coming out to support these guys and myself. Everyone's links are in the description below. So if you haven't subbed them up, please. And I'm talking to most of you guys on the rewind who may be finding out about Brian for the first time, or maybe even us. If you wander across us, sub us up. We appreciate it. And until next time, everyone keep it casual. Have
See
a
you
great
Thursday.
night. See you Thursday. Attention all, use channel sponsor Rogue Trader at theroguetraderutah.com and my code Keep It Casual for 10% off your comic cleaning and pressing needs. Remember, when submitting your books to be graded, use a trusted professional.